Well, hello again. We are going to be talking about social media here today. And there's a lot of emphasis on Twitter, but it's really not just about Twitter. It's about all kinds of social media. Of course, our conversations here are based on the book Sports Journalism, An Introduction to Reporting and Writing by Stouffer, Schaefer, and Rosenthal, Rowman and Littlefield Publishers. I do suggest that you have the book, and if you can find it used, that's good. There's also a previous edition that might be available that would probably be helpful to you. Younger audiences, no surprise, are likely to get their news from the internet or social media, but it's important to understand also that older folks are still very much fond of newspapers and television and radio, and even young people to some extent will still find themselves watching a television program or listening to the radio from time to time. But social media definitely has become a very important part of the whole media mix. Twitter and other social media often link to stories on newspapers or broadcast websites. So keep that in mind, that while social media is very important, very often when you're on social media, you may go to a link to a story from traditional media, from newspapers or television or what have you. So here's a video I want to look at, and you can watch this entire thing if you want to, and I think you'll find it entertaining, but we're just going to watch the first couple of minutes of it.
But first, our main story tonight deals with social media. We all use it, which I can say definitively now that I got a friend request over the weekend from my grandmother. Hi, Nana. I love you, but not enough to play Mafia Wars with you, so please stop asking. Despite the prominence of social media, sports television still struggles with how to use it effectively. It feels like most broadcasts show tweets just to prove they know what Twitter is, not to actually add anything to the story. Like, how many times have you seen SportsCenter do something like this, as if putting a LeBron tweet on a Cowboys highlight is going to make a viewer say, oh, LeBron wanted them to go. Well, this changes everything. Which is why it was so striking over the weekend when I saw social media used properly to actually add something to a sports broadcast. It happened during Fox's coverage of the 116th U.S. Open. Now, I know what you're thinking. I work for Fox, so they're making me do this segment, and I promise that's not the case. They can't tell me what to do. I don't listen to them. To prove it, here is a possibly photoshopped picture of my boss, network president Jamie Horowitz, wearing one of Jason Whitlock's many fedoras. Hey, boss. Please don't fire me. If you watched this weekend, you probably already know what I'm referring to. On his fifth hole Sunday, Dustin Johnson was about to putt, and his ball moved ever so slightly. He backed off. A rules official said it was all good, and he kept playing without a penalty. But then the USGA decided 7 holes later to tell Dustin, while he's in the middle of trying to win the U.S. Open, that he may or may not be penalized for it after all, and they'd let him know when he was done. It was weird and confusing, and no one could believe what was happening, which actually is a perfect description of how I felt when this happened on the broadcast.
Let's look at tweets that are rolling in. Rory McIlroy, this is ridiculous. No penalty whatsoever for DJ. Let the guy play without this crap in his head. Amateur hour from @USGA. Jordan Spieth weighs in. Let me get this straight. DJ doesn't address it. It's ruled that he didn't cause it to move. Now you tell him he may have. Now this is a joke. And then you've got Ricky Fowler. He's with the previous 2.
I want Joe Buck to read me all of my tweets for the rest of my life. But how cool is that? Real-time tweets from golfers who played that day in the tournament. It was one of those moments where you take a step back and appreciate Twitter for the value that it has.
Okay, we'll stop that at that point. You can go on. There's a few more minutes, and you may enjoy watching the rest of that as well. But she makes a great point that in that particular case, that was a great use of Twitter. It became part of the story. They were reacting to events that were happening in real time. So some rules for sports media reporters using Twitter and other social media. Use discretion or caution in what you tweet. Again, we want to maintain a professional demeanor So no profanity. I think it's a good idea to steer clear of politics because your audience likely has all different kinds of opinions there, and it's probably irrelevant to whatever story you may be covering in sports at that time. Be accurate, always important to get the facts right. Engage with your audience. Respond to their questions. Don't simply retweet others' comments. So a big part of social media and how it is used to its best effect by the traditional media, especially, and most jobs, by the way, are still with traditional media, newspapers, television, radio, so on, is to engage with the audience, to get the audience involved, and to make them feel they are part of your coverage. So to engage with that audience, responding to their questions is very valuable. Try to maintain a positive, lighthearted approach. Tweet or post at peak hours, so before 8 a.m. as people are getting up, getting ready to go to work or school or what have you. The noon hour when they have some free time, and then after 5 p.m. Those are the best times to tweet or post because the audience is the greatest at that time. Wait until you have a link to a story on your media organization's website if you're tweeting breaking news that other organizations don't have. You want to use the tweet or the post to the maximum effect. And the maximum effect would mean that you have a story, you have a full-fledged story that can be linked to your post. So whether it's a newspaper story or a television story or radio or what have you, it's best to wait until that is ready and then tweet or then post and have the link to that story from traditional media ready to go. Use good-natured humor, but don't be a comedian. I think we all are familiar with people who try to be funny. It may not be natural to them, and more often than not, it's not good. So have good humor, but don't try to be a comedian. Not very many of us are gifted in that way. Don't be too snarky. I think this is very good advice. Too much sarcasm will turn off your audience. There's a few people that will be simpatico with you. They will be, on the same wavelength with you, but the majority probably will not. And you probably will do harm to your relations with the people that you cover. They won't appreciate it if you're being sarcastic about them. So I do think that there's too much snarkiness, too much sarcasm, and probably not to good effect. Don't use the block button too much. Don't be too thin-skinned. Block only if followers are overly rude or vulgar or threatening. So let people have their say, and don't be too quick to block them. Don't say too much to spoil the main course, which is your full story. Again, that's coming back to a few points ago about having timing the tweet or timing the post to go with a full-fledged story. That story still is the main course, still is the main event, and you don't want to overshadow it with something that goes out too early in particular. Don't over-tweet. Don't flood your followers' feed so they think, oh, he's there he is again, there she is again. I'm not going to read that one because there'll be another one in 2 minutes. So you can overdo it. So let's look at another video. This is even shorter than the one before, and we're just going to look at maybe the first minute or so of this.
And here's our IBM Game Changers question of the day. How has social media changed sports?
Some players love it. Some players find it really great to be able to interact with their fans. The fans love it. They feel like they can talk to someone that they could never have talked to in the past. So I think it's changed everything about the world in general. And then it also puts a lot of spotlight on somebody. We saw that with Serena here.
As a player, you are constantly expected to be a part of conversations. You're constantly expected to kind of give the fans a glimpse of what's going on, and that's very different from the way it used to be, where players could be a little more private, could be a little more to themselves. And I think as commentators, it keeps us honest. Anytime we make a mistake on air, if a fan is watching, we will get corrected immediately on Twitter or on social media. So I definitely think it's improved and changed the whole experience.
Okay, we'll stop that at that point and carry on with our outline here. Live tweeting. One of the most popular uses of Twitter and other social media is to inform and update followers during a live sporting event, and in particular a game that is underway. News conference would be another example of that. So some tips for tweeting from live events. Let people know in advance that you're going to be doing it, so they're expecting it and looking forward to it. Tell your audience you'll be updating from the event at least an hour before. A picture from the event can set the scene, the empty stadium, and if it's an hour before, it probably won't be entirely empty, but whatever the scene is before the game. Use hashtags. Now, these might be hashtags oriented to fans of a particular team, hashtag A&M Commerce Lions, for example, or a particular event, hashtag LSC Tourney. LSC stands for Lone Star Conference, which is the conference that A&M Commerce belongs to. So hashtags are certainly useful. Provide insight. Why are people bothering to follow your posts? Because they believe you're going to provide them with some information that is either going to be useful in some way, or it's going to be entertaining, or hopefully both. So provide some analysis, statistics that are revealing of what's happening in the game, along with score updates. So give us some, I say us being the audience, give us some insight into why things are happening the way they're happening. Again, engage with your followers, reply to their comments when possible, during the game, but also after the game. Use professional language. And here we're talking about avoiding the things that you may become accustomed to in texting. For example, where we use the letter U instead of Y-O-U, the actual word. It's fine in your texts with your friends and family and so on, but it's not really a professional way of communication. So don't slip into the texting type language in your tweets or posts. Relying on Twitter as a source. Reporters covering a college or professional team should follow as many athletes or coaches on the team as possible, and this is a good source of information about what's going on with that team and what their mindset is. What are they thinking? What's on their minds as this game approaches, even perhaps up to within an hour or two of the game. A good way to keep tabs on potential news, or as a way of making contact. Of course, this allows you to make contact with players or coaches. So that can be a valuable thing. Go ahead and bring that up. Pardon me. Scooping on Twitter. A scoop is when you get the story first and nobody else has the story. So today in the 24/7 news cycle, you're lucky to have a scoop for more than 10 minutes before others report the same story, because once you've reported it, they're all going to jump on it and do their version of the story. So it may not be as valuable as it was, say, a generation ago when the newspapers were still dominant, and the newspaper would come out at 5 o'clock in the morning, and the competing paper would also come out at 5 o'clock in the morning, and their next chance, the competing newspaper's next chance to do something on that story would not be for another 24 hours. So that was very valuable. Now, it's a matter of minutes. So as mentioned before, wait until your news organization has a story on its website before tweeting or posting an item, and then link to that story. So the audience will go to the link and read or view or listen to that story, and then you're getting the most value for your organization. Again, we're talking here about the idea of using social media if you are working for a news organization. Now, a lot of people do these things on their own. That's kind of a different matter, but we're thinking here more so in terms of kind of professional situation. The story being correct is more important than being first. And that has always been true, but it's certainly more true than ever now because, again, the value of being first is not as great as it once was. Satisfying your audience. What do they want to know? Why are they following you? What information do they hope to get from you? So it's important to think in terms of the audience, not just thinking about what I'm interested in, not me, the reporter, me, the social media communicator. What does the audience want? And this is always the first thought in any kind of media work that you do, is who is the audience? And what do they want? What do they expect? A newspaper reporter quoted in your textbook says he's busy all day, before, during, and after a game, tweeting, blogging, writing stories for the newspaper and website. He's doing that for an audience. He is attempting to please and satisfy an audience. Message boards, source or not. We're talking here about fan message boards, where fans of a particular team get on the message board, and very often they are trash talking, and the information that is on there may be valuable. There may be information there that has a basis in truth. Very often what you're talking about are rumors. The information, therefore, may very well be inaccurate. It may be a hoax. Now, this is particularly true, I think, and this is my observation, of for college sports. The communication between fans of a team and then between fans of opposite teams, different teams, rival teams, can be very caustic, and very often it certainly is not professional. So you need to kind of view this with a good deal of skepticism. Do not quote message boards as a source, but check out information that appears there. You may find some information that tips you off to something that is going on and that it's the real thing. But I would not take what's on a message board as being official information at all. So you need to check them out. Reporters should not participate on fan message boards, whether the reporter is anonymous or not. Again, a lot of what happens there is not professional, and you don't want to be associated with it. Twitter for media relations. Media relations offices within athletic departments, and here we're talking about the kind of work that Josh Mank does with A&M Commerce and the A&M Commerce Athletic Department. Those media relations offices emphasize proper use of social media to athletes. What to tweet, what not to tweet. And they spend a lot of time and make a lot of effort in this area because of an embarrassing tweet can cause a lot of problems for an athletic department. So athletes, and I believe we may have some athletes participating in this class, are typically they get a lot of instruction. They get a lot of direction on how to tweet or how to post and how to conduct themselves. If you're tweeting something your mother wouldn't want to see, you probably shouldn't tweet it. And that's a quote from your textbook, and probably pretty good advice in general. So even if you're not an athlete, even if you're not a reporter, using social media, just be aware that what you're doing is you're putting something out to the public, and that represents you. And that may not be good a year from now, 2 years from now. We've heard of people getting in trouble for something they tweeted 5 years ago. Even if a tweet or post is deleted after a few seconds, if it's controversial, it will likely be nabbed on a screenshot and exist for eternity. Now, this is particularly true if you are a well-known person. It's less true if you're not, but it can be true for anyone, and those things, unless someone does go back and remove them, you may have forgotten about it, and it's still there 5 years later. So this is good advice for anyone, not just people in sports and athletics, whether they are athletes themselves or whether they are in the media. So good. That's a look at social media and how it is useful in sports, and we'll see you next time.